All right, in this video I'm gonna show you guys what to do when your hub is getting this kind of side-to-side clicking noise. If I hold onto the rails and rock the hub back and forth, you can hear that popping noise. Typically that's because there's too much space between either the hub covers and the bearings to the axle, or the tolerances are off with the hub itself. Either way, typically a couple of shims fix it. This one's pretty severe, so I'm gonna put 2 shims in. The shims I'm using are from onewheelparts.com, and they are 0.2 millimeter shims. Again, I'm gonna use 2 of them just because of how much I can actually feel this one rocking back and forth in sync with that same sound that we're hearing. So this isn't unique to just these 5-inch hubs. This can happen on stock hubs, whether it's a GT, XR, Pint even, I've seen them on. So it's something I see a lot online. I figured I'd do a video and kind of show you guys how to fix it. So first thing we're gonna do is get the hub and tire assembly off and pull the stator so we can add those shims onto it. These are the shims I'm going to be using. As you can see, they are very thin, 0.2 millimeters. Like I said, I'll be using 2 of them. Since I've got the float blocks, I'm going to have to take a rail completely off. If you don't have the float blocks, you can get away with just basically disassembling the front part of the board, unplugging it, and kind of finagling one of the blocks out so you can then pull the hub from there. All right, now that I've got the hub off, it'll be different on stock hubs, but the process will be similar. I'm gonna remove this float block for this side to actually come and pull out. All right, now that I've got that float block off, typically what I do is I set this down in between my feet and I pull up on it after I remove all these screws. However, I might do it a little bit differently just for filming purposes. So you can see all right, so on a GT hub, it'll look like this. On a stock hub, there'll only be one side with a set of screws. That'll be the side you remove. And then if you have something like this where you have bolt-on blocks of some sort, you would want to remove the opposing side and then leave this one on. Or even if you have the stock blocks, throw the block back on it, throw an axle bolt at least most of the way through it. That'll give you a handle to help pull the stator out of the hub. I'm gonna get it started on the press so I can show you guys the rest of the process. As you can see, it started. I pushed that side of the axle out a little bit. You can see it's starting to come all the way. I'm now going to put it on the ground or put it between my legs and just give it a little more of a pull. All right, now I've got the stator out all the way. From here, I am going to shim it. Just for the sake of this video and making it more time efficient, I'm going to put both shims on this side. That way we don't have to remove this cover or this float block. Technically, you can put these on either side. Helps if you take the O-ring off. I'm just gonna use a little pick for that. I've already replaced these O-rings, but it's never a bad idea to replace those while you're in there as well. There is 1 shim. There's 2 shims. I'm gonna put this O-ring back on. Typically from here, I'll take a napkin and some isopropyl alcohol. Give the axle a nice wipe, just to make sure there's no debris or dirt kind of binding it up from going back together. That looks pretty good. All right, now when we drop this back into the hub, first thing we want to do, make sure this hub is completely clean of all debris, that no dirt or anything fell into it. That can cause issues when debris get between the magnets and the hub itself. So I always go through, make sure there's no dirt or anything there, sometimes spray it out. From there, we're gonna carefully drop the stator back into the hub, make sure that's as flush as possible so there's no binding issues and things like that. All right, from here, you will kind of want to give it a nice push, making sure that the other side of the axle isn't bottoming out in anything. Once you've kind of gotten it as far as it can go, you want to start buzzing these screws down in a star pattern to make sure it's nice and flush. I don't go down all the way quite yet. I also make sure I'm on the lowest or second to lowest torque setting because these can strip out very easily. I get it nice and snug for at least the first few. Making sure that it's going down nice and flush. No binding issues. From there, after I get like the first 4 in, I'll start adding the other screws in. All right, now the first thing I'm gonna do before I bolt it together is make sure that it still spins. There's no weird noises. Sounds good. So from this point, I'm gonna start reassembling in reverse order, starting with this float block. I always add Loctite to the inner and outer axle bolts, or if you're doing something that's stock with the stock blocks, you just add Loctite to the only axle bolts that are on there. Because I have the float blocks, I'm gonna put a rail on really quick, just with one bolt on the outside just to hold it still, and then I'm going to put a torque wrench actually so I can actually make sure that the inner bolt is completely tight. Those are pretty darn tight. Head locker will just help make sure that they don't jiggle loose from all the vibrations later down the road. A lot of people use blue, I use red. It's just what I've been using in the automotive world for a really long time, so I trust it. But blue works great too. Gonna add some Loctite to the outer ones. I leave the bottom 2 screws on these pads out just for easy access because I'm constantly taking my board apart. Going to hot glue the connections. Just one little dab there, one little dab there. Last but definitely not least, we will torque the axle bolts. I like to do it like this. All right, now for the moment of truth, I'm going to grab the rails again and try to rock the hub back and forth. As you can see, I'm giving it some good push. There's no side to side movement, no clunk, which is really good. Lift it up and try doing the same thing. Nothing. Now I'm gonna lift it up and spin it. Just make sure there's no weird binding noises, that it spins smoothly. Sounds great. And that is how you shim a stator when it's making that clunking noise.